Good morning to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and Discussion time. Going to be talking about Hurricane Dorian. Obviously, that's the big story of the day. And the plan for my discussion today, as you can see, I have a few tabs open. We're going to go over the latest satellite image to talk about the structure and the motion. And then we're going to take a look at some geography where Dorian is headed and the areas that it could impact over the next 24 to 48 hours. We focused a lot on Florida and potentially the southeast United States for good reason, but in the path of Dorian right now are the northwestern Bahamas, the northern Bahamas, and I want to make sure that we address the issues that are coming up there. Then we'll take a look at some guidance stuff, and then just a few little bits and pieces of information that I find interesting, and then a reminder of celebrating too soon, so to speak, and how that can work out. No two hurricanes are ever going to be the same. Everything is different with each hurricane, obviously, but I see a lot of people, and I understand, you're looking for good news along the way, but I want to make sure that doesn't get translated into, well, there's not going to be any impacts at all from Dorian because of model trends. We're still 4 to 5 days out, 3 to 5 days out in some cases, but we have a long way to go. All right, so let's get rid of me just for a moment. Taking a look at the satellite imagery here, the beautiful visible satellite shot here from Tropical Tidbits, and this right here is 26 degrees north latitude. That's the latitude line right there, 26 degrees north. And as you can see, Dorian, with the exception of these wobbles, is kind of wobbling along like a top spinning on your desktop. If you took a top and spun it, it wobbles around, and there's physics behind that we won't get into today. Dorian is not moving in an absolute straight line. That eye and the core kind of wobbles along inside of the overall envelope of energy down there, but the general motion is basically west, and you can clearly see that. So if you know your compass headings, 270 degrees on a compass is due west. All right, now I bring that up because it's interesting. The tropical guidance here from the 12Z models, let's get rid of me here, saying that at 12 UTC, major hurricane Dorian was located, 25-9, 73, 125 knots, and the center was moving at 9 knots at a bearing, the compass heading, the bearing of 295 degrees. I don't know if I buy that. And how they do this, I don't know if it's a 3-hour averaged motion, but just kind of looking at it, riding along that 26 degree latitude line right there, it seems to me that, generally speaking, it's moving. I mean, in some cases it wobbles south a little bit. You could call it 268 degrees. That's just south of west. And in some cases it's moving 270, 275. But if that's 270, and I don't have a way to do perfect angles on here, but 295 degrees, 300 degrees is northwest, kind of like that. So 295, it would be like that maybe, something like that. I don't see 295. I'm sorry, that's just, I don't. But that's what the model input was, and that is important, and we'll get into that part in just a minute. So look over here. This is the northwest Bahamas. Okay, you've got Abaco Island and Grand Bahama over here. And let's just go take a look at the Google map just for a second. So there's Great Abaco, and you have Marsh Harbor there, right up there in that bend. Hurricane Floyd devastated that area in 1999. There's Grand Bahama and Cooperstown up here, etc. And Dorian right now is located, this doesn't have lat long on it, but somewhere out in here. It's in fact, we can pinpoint that, and you see that the 26 degree line goes right there, 26 latitude goes right there, straight west through the southern part of Great Abaco. So if we look at the Google map again, the 26 degree line kind of goes like right through there, roughly. So if Dorian were to move at roughly 270 degrees, and you can even be a little generous and say, what if it's moving at 275 on average, then it would potentially cross over a good portion, the eye, of Great Abaco. And the models are suggesting, go back to this now, and remember it says a bearing of 295. I don't think so, but we'll see. So we look at the guidance here. Actually, I pulled it up there. And the guidance is suggesting that, generally speaking, this little envelope here, and the black line is the official forecast, but the modeling is suggesting that it would go north of Great Abaco, which is right there. And I don't see that happening either unless it really starts gaining latitude. So I'm worried here that Great Abaco, as Dorian comes in, unless it starts to really turn like that, right now, like I said, I see it moving generally at 270. Great Abaco is in great peril, and this is going to have to make some serious turns, and it's chugging along as that ridge builds. And then that has implications over here for Grand Bahama, and if it even comes in for some reason, if it loses latitude and were to come in more to the south of, I don't know. It's just, when I look at this and I see that almost due west heading, that's unnerving. And you folks over here in the Abacos, that's what I call it, Great Abaco, you got to be ready. Marsh Harbor, by the way, is located basically right in here. So, connecting the dots, if you want to call it that, from the I dot to Marsh Harbor dot, it's going to have to go on that bearing to do that. And it just might. So I'm going to do an update early this evening, and we'll see what the progress is. All right. I'll save this satellite image, and we can compare. And I'll do some stuff to show you, 6-8 hours later. All right. So then farther to the west, of course, you have millions of people that live over here that are anxiously awaiting what happens. And while there is cause for some relief that the modeling is indicating that it comes in and then kind of turns northwest over time, there's a few things of very important note that are going to happen. First of all, this guidance here is a little bit helpful, but maybe not, and I'll explain why in just a moment. It's the 12Z. You got your consensus models in here, the HMON, which replaced the GFDL, the HWARF, different no-gaps models, different interpolated, then your consensus at the top, your simple statistical models down here, and climatology, persistence, and X-trap. Don't even use those. This is just a quick look. So don't look at this and go, oh man, look at that. It's turning out to sea. Not so fast, and I'm going to show you why. All right, and here's part of that. So Ryan Maui, who is he? Well, he works over at the Weather Model site, PhD, very smart guy, knows how to make maps like a boss. And so the European model runs now 4 times a day. The major synoptic runs of 0Z and 12Z go out 10 days. Then off synoptic runs at 6Z and 18Z go out to 90 hours. That's it. The Euro started doing that. So this is the 6Z ensemble package, and I don't think they have 51 members. Maybe they do. I didn't even check, but this is what Maui was showing. And that's the deterministic run, I do believe, right there. And then these are all the ensemble members. So while a majority do keep it off of Florida, and we're talking about it is the core. When we say it, and I want to just slow down for a second, people are going to be using that term today. Oh, it's looking like it's going to miss. And as long as people understand that Matthew also missed Florida, the core, in 2016, and yet it caused $3 billion of damage just in Florida. Remember that. We're talking about the center or the core of the hurricane with all of these plots. So when someone says it, get some water. Doing a lot of talking and not enough sleeping. I feel great though, by the way. Mentally and physically, 2 thumbs up. But the voice can get a little weak if I'm not careful. So it, in this case, is, in all cases, is the core. So please understand, look at all, and that gets me to this point. A lot of members over here to the east side or the right side of the track, but a lot of members also south and west with the center as well. I say a lot, there are enough to be concerned. And this is also 90 hours out, roughly, all these dots up here. All of these ending dots are ending at 90 hours. See, so there's like a stall that's going to go on in here. And I'm not laughing like, oh man, you sick SOB. People just don't understand, and even I don't understand everything. And so to think that it's over, we are good, and I try to have analogies to help people understand one of the greatest, we've got this and whatever in sports history, and there's a bunch of them, is the Patriots-Falcons game, right? The Super Bowl. It looked for sure that the Atlanta Falcons were going to beat the New England Patriots. You remember that? I remember that because I sent a text message to one of my colleagues, literally said there's no way that New England is coming back now. And we know what happened. And before you laugh and dismiss this as, why is he bringing up football? The analogy is what I'm trying to help you understand here. That in life, we have different things that happen, and there are probabilities involved with that. Some are more certain than others, and understanding how all of that works helps us understand the complexities and maybe even helps us resolve what we're going to do about a certain situation. So having these analogies to help people, oh, okay, I remember that. While NFL football has no physical relationship to tropical meteorology, the correlation of understanding the analogy helps. And so when you look at something like this, that when people see all of these model runs that are north and away from Florida, they're thinking, we got this. When in reality, there are enough, just in one run here, ensemble members that suggest a landfall or a much closer approach to bring hurricane force winds. You don't got this. Not yet. It's not over until it's over. And that is the facts. All right? And I mean, some of these, are bending it back. Some of these, this is very interesting that the 6Z European model, the ECMWF, is showing this. And there's another very important variable here. I have not been able to confirm it with an official source at NOAA or the government or the Hurricane Center and all of that, but I have been reading on reliable message boards that the that the high altitude jet, the Gulfstream 4 upper air data, was not in the overnight model runs because they couldn't fly. They're having problems with that jet from what I'm reading. And if that is true, then we do not have a sampling of the environment up here in front of Dorian to the north. And that is very, very important. And I'm going to use my Google Maps here to illustrate this. We'll zoom out. So we pretend for a moment, Dorian is sitting over here somewhere, okay, just roughly. And all around here, I don't know all the locations, but a lot of these weather forecast offices launch balloons. Wilmington does not, but Morehead City does. Bottom line is the land masses around here, from Puerto Rico to the Hispaniola, Cuba, the lower 48, etc., they launch these sounding balloons. Now they're doing it 4 times a day. Normally it's twice a day. We get all this upper air data from the surface of the earth to near the stratosphere if you're lucky. And it gives us a profile of the atmosphere. How thick is the atmosphere? What's happening? Moisture, temperature, pressure, all kinds of things. That happens over the United States normally twice a day and elsewhere around the globe. Now they're doing it in the United States 4 times a day for extra data. how many balloons are they launching around here, with the exception of Bermuda? Good old Bermuda, you're launching balloons too, thank you very much. But how many are launching out in that circle? Big fat zero. There's nobody out there with hydrogen or helium launching sounding balloons into the atmosphere. It's not happening. So what happens, I believe it's out of Tampa, the Gulfstream 4 jet flies out, and it does these patterns. I'm just making this up. It'll do these patterns out here where it drops these dropsons down, because balloons go up, so they go 45,000 feet or so. They drop these dropsons in this pattern to sample the environment north of the hurricane. You know, if it's sitting out here and around it, to feed the global models more data. They don't have that right now because they weren't able to fly. If my sources and the stuff that I'm reading is correct, and I did not see them mention it in the discussion that I remember. So that's potentially a very big variable, and it's interesting that the Euro had a little bit more south and west. And let me just tell you something. This right here is incredibly important. The forward motion now and its bearing, every 5 to 10 miles farther west Dorian gets, the core and everything else, is going to matter 2 days out, 3 days out, 4 days out, but especially 24 to 48 hours out when the Bahamas are at play here, and then 72 hours for Florida. All right? Very, very important. That forward motion and its bearing, the more west that it gets before it hits the brakes and makes that turn, it could be a little higher bearing like this, and it turns here. I'm going to show you, you can see that in the guidance. Or it could be over here. Remember Matthew. Please remember Matthew. All right. This is another way to visualize the European from last night. This is a atmospheric simulation from the Euro as to what the infrared temperature might look like. So it's basically rendering what the cloud shot would be. This is not a real satellite animation. It is the model's interpretation. I mean, it's amazing that we can do this. And as you can see, it comes in to the Abaco area, Grand Bahama, slows down significantly, and then it comes up. This is last night's Euro again, very close to the Carolinas, nicking Cape Fear, maybe Cape Lookout. That's farther down the road. We'll worry about that later. But you see, very close to the southeast United States. And as it does so, remember, last night's run, there was no upper air data except for Bermuda, assuming they launched their balloon at 0Z or whatever, and I'm sure they did. But there was no Gulfstream data, Gulfstream 4 aircraft data, high altitude data out here from what I'm understanding. And what's happening is the steering flow up here collapses, Dorian slows down, turns north, and then a big ridge starts to build out here. If we're not sampling out here, we don't know how big that ridge is, because there's no freaking weather balloons out there, and that concerns me. And just to remind you, this was the forecast for Irma. When was Irma? 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years ago. The 72-hour position was right over Miami as a Cat 5 or whatever it was, Cat 4, Cat 5. I mean, that was bad. Everybody remembers that. And the actual, so that was 3 days out. 3 days, okay? 3 days. That was actually what happened. Need I say more? And this is where I go back to things in life that you look at and you make decisions based on probability, and no hurricanes are the same, and there are other examples. Matthew, Irene 2011, Irma there in 2017. You can have some big changes even over a 3-day time frame that ends up affecting the outcome for millions of people. So just please keep that in mind. I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't know what's going to happen next. I do hope that they are able to, whatever's wrong with that G4 aircraft, I mean, priorities, man. We gotta got to invest more into the weather so that this doesn't happen. Oh, the G4 is not working? Too bad. Where's the backup G4? I mean, for goodness sakes, I know that they're retrofitted to do this, but if I had a G4, I'd be like, you could borrow mine, because this is important, and it's a real shame if that's true, that the G4 data is missing from overnight runs, and hopefully, I don't think it's going to get in the 12Z runs. So anyway, that's what I know. This is what I look at myself, and I'm just screencasting it for you, because this is what I would do even if you were not on the other side there watching. All right? So I'm going to pour over the data for the day. The 11 o'clock advisory is going to come out here soon. And early this evening, I'll make another video and I'll post it, and we'll see what happens. We'll be looking at these trends with short-term satellite imagery, the morning model runs, the 12Z runs of the GFS and the Euro, etc., and we'll go from there. So early evening, whatever that is, 5, 6 o'clock, something like that, I'll post another video discussion. All right? That is it from me. I am Mark Sutter with HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thanks for tuning in. I'll have more for you early this evening.